All right, we're live. Gotta get Ron on here. Gonna be a really pretty cool art pop interview going today with Ron, who's a comedian. He's a comedian and a kind of an activist. So it's pretty cool what he does. Let's wait until he comes on in. There you
What's
are,
up,
man.
man? How are
Yo, we
you?
got you doing good. How are you?
Good. Welcome to my deck. Let me try to position it so that I was hoping it could I was hoping my Wi-Fi would be kind of there. Can you see my big head's kind of fucking up the ocean view? Sorry about that,
Well,
everybody.
you have that beautiful hat, so
All right. Well, I guess that hopefully that makes up for it. I don't know,
it
but
does.
all right.
Dude,
I'll take your word for it.
it's so awesome to do part two of our interview.
Yeah, man, it's been a couple years. I
Couple
haven't seen
years.
you. The last time I saw you was in San
Insane.
Diego,
Yep.
and
Yep.
I was just thinking about that. It's been since like 2018.
Yeah.
And yeah, I kind of like I know you kind of stopped doing the podcast, which
Hmm.
I was a one-time caller and long-time listener, so
Yeah,
but
it was a lot of fun. And I did really miss it. But I think I kind of burned myself out being overly OCD on editing it and like over producing it type thing.
yeah.
Yeah, so this I kind of like this format a little bit better because just sit down, talk, and then I have it live. So if anyone wants to throw in some comments, I always like to grab the comments and kind of throw them in. A lot of times people have really good questions or little things they'll say, and then I'll go and throw this up on YouTube for the future because lazy people want to
Yeah.
listen to it on their own time, right?
Yeah, well, no, IG Live's a cool thing. I haven't done like a ton of them. I'm not like as active on Instagram as other mediums or whatever, but I
Yeah.
always have a really good time when I do one. So when you asked me to do one, I was like, yeah, totally. I hope
No, that's awesome.
is
No,
it?
yeah,
Oh,
I
that's
reached
better. How's that? Is my face a little less dark
Oh, that's
now?
good. Yeah, no,
Okay.
that's good.
All right,
Yeah.
I'll try to keep it like this. I just wanted to sit out on my deck, have a nice cash chat with you. So
It's a hot day. It's a where are you based right now?
San Pedro. So I'm still in Los Angeles, but I'm in the Bay. I think when I first met you, I was still living in the Pasadena area.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've been out here in Pedro for 2 years now, and I'm still here. But I recently moved to a new place, just like a mile down the street from where I was, pretty much. But yeah, so this is I'm still getting used to having this little deck here. That's something new
Yeah, you got to
for me.
utilize it, man. I mean, it costs probably a couple $500 extra a month in rent.
Well, no, it was kind of a package deal, which was nice. But like, no, it's funny. Like, I was actually over my neighbor's place like over the weekend because he had a little gathering with some folks, and we were kind of out on their deck, and some of his friends were there and stuff. And like out on our deck, you just kind of see like scattered chairs and shit right now. So I was real quick to be like, we've only been here since the beginning of the month, just so you know. We've only because like
Yeah.
yeah, right now it's like there's a couple just scattered lawn chairs and like a chair that I'm sitting in, which is just literally a chair from our kitchen. So we still got a minute to go, but I want to have a garden. That's what I really want to
Oh,
do. Yeah, I want to have a garden. So we'll see,
that's
but
really,
garden's the
really
goal.
clutch. And there's a lot of channels and stuff and people online that actually really show how to utilize the minimal space. And just by having a little patio like that, you could probably grow quite a bit.
Yeah, because you can do the what is it called, the horizontal or the like you can do that pretty easily, and it's kind of cool. All the easiest stuff to grow, at least some of the easiest stuff in California, is all the stuff that's pretty cool to grow anyway, like tomatoes and
Yeah.
lettuce, and it's like, oh, that's all stuff I like. And they're basically in this, because of the climate, they're like, well, you can grow this unless you really, really screw up. So
Right.
I'm like, fantastic. It's
Yeah. You
hard for
know
me
what
to
is a
screw
good
up and
one?
it's delicious.
You know what's a good one that it grows like weeds is potatoes, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll, potatoes, I know I need a little more space for, so I
You
might.
do need kind of like a bucket. Yeah.
Yeah, so that might be something I work up to. But
Yeah.
a buddy of mine like does that for a living. A guy who actually is still my neighbor. He like consults on other people's home gardens, and he also like consults with community gardens as well as like starting his own. And then he just does general landscaping too. Um, so I think what I want to do is like I want to try to see if he'll help me out, and I'll like kind of like mention it on the show and stuff, and it'll be like a
Oh,
trade.
yeah, yeah. I'd be like, I'll get you some extra client, dude. But that's how we do it. It's all about networking. Everyone kind of helps out in their own little way.
Bartering's dope, man. I love it.
Yeah.
I've always loved it.
Oh, totally. Yeah, yeah. So, well, why start? Like, we're talking about the Punk Rock and Politics podcast. That was mainly, that was all really focused on me talking to punk bands and kind
Yeah.
of getting them to talk politics, which, in the age of Trump was rather easy, and it worked really well. And now I'm doing a lot more music and creative type stuff. So
Yeah.
my goal with this format, this type thing is, I love going down the politics rabbit hole. Like, I'm totally cool with that, but I really want to foster this for other creatives and get, like you were saying, bartering, basically, because you have years and years of experience of being on social media, playing live shows, doing tours, just being a comedian, going on stage, putting in the work. So you have like a lot of knowledge and a lot of what works good and what probably doesn't work so good. So I kind of want to pick your brain, and I want you to share your knowledge and a lot of the stuff you've learned from it to help foster the next generation or other people who may be stuck in a rut or are just starting to do it.
Sure.
Well,
That's
I'll lead.
yeah,
So,
yeah,
but
yeah. I was gonna
first,
say, I was like, start with a specific thing, because
okay, now
that's
give us
very, very
all of your
broad.
tricks. Go. No, well, I do want to start kind of like, actually, I don't, because I first discovered you you were doing shows on like the Young Turks. You're kind of like doing little feature segments and stuff. So, how did you start? Because I don't really think I know before that, like, how did you start up in comedy and get into politics and kind of merge the two together? Let's get a little background. I'm really curious about that.
Yeah, sure, man. Well, first of all, I was always kind of paying attention to politics, pretty much like, I mean, in college, the Iraq War, or when I was in college, the Iraq War was really in full swing. I was kind of like, why the heck are we out there? What's going on? And I really started getting into, politics, and then lefty politics, because, Bush was in charge, and I didn't really know much about politics at that point. I mean, I knew I wasn't a Republican. I knew that. I knew I was like, well, I guess the Democrats are, I guess that's where I'm at. But I didn't pay a ton of attention. But then I was kind of like, why are we in this war? This war is messed up. And I started learning more about, the American system and the war machine. And I became a pretty big lefty. And that was like freshman year. So I was always into politics. Um, and then around the time, like basically when I was getting ready to graduate college, I I just decided I was going to try stand up. I was like, well, I've been in bands for years. I can like I'll try telling jokes. Why not? And I tried it. And my first time was not an open mic, because like this was in Bloomington, Indiana, in Indiana University. So my first time was at a real show, so to
Oh,
speak.
wow.
And yeah, and I didn't understand. I mean, I didn't understand how the entire world of stand up worked. Like I had no clue. So I went up and I just completely bombed. I didn't even know you were supposed to write jokes ahead of time. I honestly didn't. I thought you were just supposed to like riff. So I did, and it was terrible. And I got really drunk because I was
How
nervous.
long was that set for, if you remember?
It was supposed to be 5 minutes. I think on behalf of the audience, it was not that long.
Right,
I think that I had enough sense to cut it short,
right.
because it was atrociously terrible. I mean, if anybody has footage from that night, they could probably blackmail me for the rest of my life. But no, it was really bad, and because I just had no idea what I was doing. And then the guy after me went up, and he was killing, and I still didn't understand. I thought that that guy was like a graduate student at my university. I still
Oh,
didn't understand how comedy worked. So, and here's the other fun part. The comedian who it was, we actually still know each other in LA to this day. But I don't know if he remembers this. And I
oh,
don't think I'll ever
yeah.
ask him. Maybe someday I will. But we've encountered each other, you know, like many years down the road when we're both working comics, you know, like we've seen each other at conferences and shit like that. So I
Right.
don't know if he remembers this. And if he does, I don't remember if he realizes it was me, because I had like long hair and a bunch of piercings back then and
Oh,
shit.
wow.
Yeah, and like, and so
I can't imagine you.
I'll show you some pictures. But like,
Yes.
yeah, he gets off stage, and I was just like, "Hey, man, you did really good." And he goes, "Thanks, dude." And I go, "What do you study?" And he goes, "Excuse me." And I go, "Oh, but I thought you might be a grad student here." And he goes, "No, no, I'm not a grad student at Indiana." And I go, "Okay, well, what do you do for a living?" And he goes, "You just saw it. I'm a comedian." And I
Uh,
was like, "Oh, you're a comedian? This is like what you did?" He goes, "Yeah." And I was like, "Wow, I didn't know." And I was like, "Do you have any advice for me? That was my first time up there." And he goes, "I think you should maybe try writing some jokes."
yeah.
Which I needed to hear, actually. I
Yeah.
literally need. That's why, like, whenever somebody is like weird about their first time, I'm just like, hey, if you wrote jokes ahead of time, you're a step ahead of me at my first time. So look at it that way. But anyway, I didn't think about it for a long time, but then I moved out to Seattle, where there's a big comedy scene out there. There was then, there still is, and I kind of learned what it meant to try to do stand up. Like I didn't, you know, at the time. I think there is a little bit of a comedy scene in Bloomington now, because there's actually a lot of people that started there that have gone on to do amazing things, because there's a really nice club there, but there wasn't when I was, you know, a recent college graduate. And then shortly after graduation, I moved out west for a new adventure,
Right.
and you know, wound up in Seattle. And I just learned what it meant to like try to do comedy. So I started doing open mics. I started doing everything else. As far as like getting involved in like content creation and specifically like TYT network stuff, um, back in the day when I lived in Pittsburgh, you know, I would occasionally produce some of my own stuff because, you know, at the time, and again, there's a much bigger scene there now, to the best of my knowledge, but at the time it was a lot smaller, and there weren't like a ton of opportunities there, other than just kind of open mics and stuff like that. So you kind of had to create your own. So it was DIY, if you will. And so I decided to try to produce some shows with comics that I liked, that I thought were cool. And one of the comics that I liked and thought was cool was Lee Camp. And
Oh,
you
yeah.
know, so I reached out to I mean, we're friends now, but you know, at the time he just kind of knew me as, you know, someone who was a younger comic who knew who he was and wanted to bring him in. So, you know, I offered to bring him in, and I said, look, I don't have a lot of money, but you know, I think the door will do pretty well, and I bet I can guarantee you this and this. And he goes, okay, yeah, sure, I'll come in. And you know, like yeah, I couldn't afford to like get him a hotel or anything, but I was like, you guys could crash. And you know, at the time I had a guest room, because you know, rent's cheap in Pittsburgh, so I did have a 2 bedroom. So you know, him and his then wife, they stayed in my guest room and stuff. He was cool about that, and we did a fun show. And one of the people at the show worked for the Young Turks Network. Simultaneously, I had started doing these like little minute long segments where I was just doing like these satirical, like just satirizing the news, but like a minute long. It was kind of like the thing Jim Hightower does, but it was like my own spin on it. And the David Pakman show was playing them. Like David liked the segment, and
Right.
so he was playing it. And at the time, the David Pakman show was on TYT Network. So the guy from TYT Network was like, "Hey, you do those short things on David Pakman's channel." And you know, he saw me do stand up too. And he goes, "Why don't you do that on YouTube?" And I was like, "I don't know, just because I'm kind of not into online video really." And he goes,
Right.
"Well, would you do it for our network? And I was like, yeah, I think I would. So, so that's how like I got, so I
Wow.
got to be part of their network before ever doing anything on YouTube other than just like a stand-up clip or two. That's why
Wow.
like my channel's been around for a really long time, even though it's probably been inactive for as many years as it's been active, which is probably not smart, but whatever. That's just how it worked out.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started doing stuff with their network, and then when I moved out to LA, that of course morphed into doing some stuff on some of their panels, doing some stuff on aggressive progressives, and then simultaneously, I got to know Jimmy Dore, and we had known each other from just emails and stuff before that, and I knew who he was going as far back as like 2004 because I remember I watched his first special when I was in college, so I knew who he was as a comedian or whatever. But yeah, so that's kind of how all that happened.
Wow, that's
Yeah.
cool. So with that show, so it was really actually looking back on it, pretty pivotal moment for on your path and everything that you just kind of made a leap of faith and just booked that show and reached out to Lee Camp, and then all that just unfolded from there. It's pretty rad.
Yeah. I mean, it
What?
is pretty rad, and it was a super fun night. I mean, it's one of those nights where it's like, I mean, I've had a ton of fun shows. But every now and again, like there's a handful where it's like you just remember the entire night. Like it was just like one of those things where everything hit on every cylinder. And I wasn't even headlining. Lee was, I mean, I just did like 25 minutes. And then the other cool thing is a comedian who's still based in Pittsburgh, but is still a good friend of mine to this day and a friend of Lee, Chris Moen, who ended up like, opening for Lee for a lot of years. So it's like we all kind of met that fateful night many years back in Pittsburgh. So it was sort of a pivotal moment, I guess, for everyone, maybe even Lee to an extent, because like I think Chris kind of helped him out with a lot of touring and booking, like the booking part. So so
When,
yeah,
when
I think it was a cool night for everyone. I hope, and we all had a really good time. We all got hammered after.
Yeah, of
It was
course.
a
And that's
cool
part
freaking
of
night,
like
dude.
bonus of all that. Wait, so did you book that venue, or how did that, like, I want to get some of the logisticals on that.
Yeah, we're getting insider baseball now,
Well,
man.
if
But
that's
this is
okay,
a punk rock.
that's kind
No,
of
it's
what
fine
because
with
I
me.
want to teach people what to do, how
Yeah,
to
no,
do it.
I love conversations like this. I just know you can't really get away with them everywhere. But since like punk rock's kind of your niche and stuff, I feel
Well,
like this is the place to have them. But yeah, like there was just this venue in Pittsburgh called Ham Bones, which unfortunately the guy who ran it passed away not too long ago,
uh-huh.
and Ham Bones is no longer a venue, and it's pretty sad. He was like one of the sweetest guys on the planet. This guy named Jeff Holt, and Jeff got this place. He was doing comedy in downtown, this place in downtown Pittsburgh where we had this little side room, but it was like right in the bar and stuff. He ended up buying this place in a neighborhood called Lawrenceville, which is kind of like that's like the Brooklyn of Pittsburgh, basically. It's a really cool neighborhood. It's like a super
Yeah.
hip neighborhood, and it's at the time it was also still pretty cheap. It's more expensive now, but it was a pretty cheap neighborhood at the time, or expensive by Pittsburgh standards. I mean, where you and I live, man, it's cheaper than where we live. But
Oh yeah.
yeah, because you're in San Diego, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh,
So
it's
it's still cheap compared to where we live, but
right.
by Pittsburgh standards, it's a little more expensive now. But yeah, man, he got this other spot called Ham Bones where they had this like side room, and they were doing comedy there. They did music a couple nights a week. They did comedy a couple nights a week.
Oh,
And if you were kind of one of the regulars, if you like booked a weekend night ahead of time, you could. And he gave you like the best door deal, man. It was just like you take care of your own tickets, you do what you got to do, you keep that, I keep the bar, and we're all happy. And if you sell enough seats, I'll make sure there's a server in the bar so everyone stays lubed up. I mean, he did it right. He treated you right, and
yeah.
so the door did good. I was able to pay Lee, and I made a few bucks too, and I was able to pay the opener, and everyone was happy.
All
Jeff
worked
was
out.
thrilled because bar sales were good. And yeah, that's how you do it. You
Yeah.
find you
Yes.
find a venue that appreciates you, if they know you're going to do your part. And it's like, if you want to produce a show, okay, you fill up that room. And if you fill up that room, they should treat you right. Because you know what? You just treated them right. You gave them patrons who wouldn't be there otherwise, and those patrons are eating and drinking. So they should treat you right and give you your gate.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
or at least give you most of your gate. At
Right.
least, like at least like 70-80% of it. At least.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I had an old school punk rocker. We have really fun conversations because he's more of a libertarian type anarchist. So, I'm lefty with you, and so we have some really fun conversations back and forth. But he started up
okay.
a promotion company because
Uh-huh.
he was saying a lot of these promotional companies are booking bands and just throwing them on the bill and saying, okay, cool, like your reward is you got a show. Like, so he started his own promotion company, is actually paying the bands, giving them drink tickets, like giving them food. Like, it's like, wow, what a concept, But I think the whole DIY aspect of just kind of booking yourself and doing it is like, yeah, that's huge, man. That's kind of the way to do it. And so kind of going off from that, you say you weren't really big into the online stuff originally. And here's one thing I noticed actually. I actually did a little like tour up the West Coast. I actually was at Kelly's Olympian, which is I saw you're going to be
Oh
playing there.
yeah,
We'll
we're gonna
we'll
be
talk
there.
about yeah, we'll
Yeah,
talk about that towards the end about your tour with Graham.
sure.
And but what I noticed is a lot of people I actually kind of integrated into some TikTok groups and a few,
Yeah.
on here on Instagram. And I noticed there's kind of like two schools of thought, and a lot of people are like this now. They're just don't do live shows. I mean, as comedians, it's not really too much, but more from the music world, a lot of people are trying to get that viral video, or they're just online doing their thing. What would some of the aspects that you would really press, that's like the importance of actually like getting on stage and actually touring and getting your face out there, and in networking with people? Because I mean, do you see that at all? I kind of feel like it's kind of drying up. Maybe COVID had a lot to do with it, but where we're at.
I think that yes, I do see it, but I don't think. And again, I mean, I could be totally wrong. I mean, you're in touch with like the music world, especially more so than I am. I mean, I'm just really in touch. I mean, I have some friends in that world, and I'm also just a listener. But my my interpretation of all of it is that it's not really a reflection of people not wanting to do it. It's more a reflection of it is just so difficult to do it now.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, COVID had a lot to do with that because that just really changed sort of. I think we're still sort of, I think as a world, we're still not quite awake yet as a world. We're still in this weird place where it's like the first alarm went off and we're stirring, but we haven't really got up and had our morning coffee yet. And that's okay. I mean, I think a global pandemic will do that to a place. At least I'm assuming it's the first one any of us have been through. But unless you're 100 and something years old.
Oh
But
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. The swan, that old Spanish
you look
flu, that was a
fantastic,
doozy.
man. but but yeah, so I think that's like I think it's more a reflection of that. I mean, and some musicians I know, like a lot of them, like they just can't really do the States that well anymore. Like they have to go to other places like Europe and stuff like that. Which hey, I like doing. I'm trying to do more international stuff anyway, so that's
Yeah.
okay by me. But but it's also kind of a bummer that if someone really just wants to like circle the country, they can't do that as easily anymore. And in comedy, it's the same story. I mean, when I was, like really just sort of coming up, you could be a road comic, and it wasn't the easiest life in the world, but you could do it. And if you kept your expenses low and you were good with routing and you were good with logistics, and you knew like, okay, I have a show in New Hampshire tonight. I'm not going to book myself in Spokane, Washington the next night. If you were smart enough not to do stuff like that,
Yeah.
you could make a living. I mean, yeah, you weren't breaking the bank, but you could get by. You can make a living, and you could afford a reasonable apartment in a reasonably priced city. And if you really just wanted to be a road comic, basically anywhere in the Midwest is a great place to be because that's where like all the comedy clubs are.
Right.
So, like you could live in like Indianapolis or Cleveland or like Pittsburgh or Chicago. A lot of comics lived in Chicago because you still have some industry there, but you're like close to everything, and you know, not as pricey as New York or LA or whatever. So you could still do that. And now, I mean, I'm sure you still can, but I think it's even harder than it was when I was coming up because like rooms have dried up, clubs have dried up. You know, they're trying to pay people less and less. You know, venues are taking a bigger and bigger bite. If you are able to kind of do it on your own and draw because you have a thing online or something like that. So it's just really, I think it's really hard now. And I think for bands, it's twice as hard because you have gear and you have to have a van and you have to have, you know, like housing for that many more people and you have to, you know, and I mean, some of the stuff I've seen what they do for bands, like it's, I don't know how anyone makes anything resembling a living. I mean, I remember I saw this deal for this rock club once because like they said it was, I think it was this venue in Tampa. I'm not going to say who it was, but they sent us this deal because they were going to bring us in like their like up room, but they have the same deal for everybody. And I looked at the way their deal works, and I did the math just for. I mean, they were just way out of our league, so I was just like, yeah, there's no way we can consider you guys. You're just way too big for what we do, and we don't need, you know, like a fully equipped rock venue for like a microphone and a stool, you know. Um, but I just kind of like did the math just for just because I was curious, and I was just like, okay, a band would have to sell out this club at $30 a head to make any money.
Wow.
Like to make it, and then I did math, and I'm like, okay, if they have a 5-piece band and no crew, I didn't even factor in crew. I was like, if they just have a 5-piece band, they each made $200 tonight. If they sell the club out, so I was just like, how does anyone survive doing
Yeah.
this? Like I don't know how you do it. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know how bands do it.
Especially when
And
you're
I
an
know
up and
some
coming
do, but
band, who's gonna want to pay $30 for a ticket if you're an up and coming band? I mean, you know, I know it's gotten more expensive, but even $30, I mean,
that's a lot. I mean,
it
yeah,
is.
that's a
It
lot.
is.
And so, yeah, I don't know how. I mean, granted, that's just like one example, and I'm sure not every club works that way. But man, I don't know how bands do it. It's got to be so hard. So I think it's like, yeah, people aren't touring as much. I think part of it is we're still waking up as a world. So I think that's part of it. You know, I mean, a lot of people, it's like they're picking and choosing what they want to do, you know, because of COVID, because of, you know, maybe they just don't have a lot of money right now. Maybe they were out of work for however long and didn't get any assistance, you
Mhm.
know. So there's a long list of reasons why people are kind of being a little more selective still with what they're doing. And I get it. I'm that way as a person too, you know.
Yeah.
So if you're kind of a mid-level thing, whether it's a band, a comedian, or whatever, people might be like, oh, I'll catch you next time because you know, like rent's due on the first and I can only
Okay.
do so many things. So I get it. I mean, I totally get it. I've not toured a ton this year myself.
Mhm.
But, you know, after the past few years we had, it's good to get back out there some and, you know, get back out there even more, you know, next year, hopefully. And so, yeah, so I definitely see what you're saying, but I think it's more of just, it's so hard to do. And it bums
It's a
me
good
out. I
point.
mean, it sucks that it's that way.
Yeah, and well, and you didn't even
And we
mention
didn't
gas
even. Oh
too. I
yeah,
mean, the gas price, like,
yeah. I was just about to say that, man. We
yeah,
literally, because I was like, that doesn't even mention gas prices.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Because I
So
I did a, like I said, up from San Diego up to Seattle, and I kind of decided I was going to do that a few months ago, and that was right before gas just took off. And
yeah,
then getting closer and closer, I'm like, dude, how am I, like, this is just nuts. But I mean, it was just me. I was sleeping in my car pretty
yeah,
much most of the time, and, you know, like eating just absolute crap the whole time. But it did work out, you know. And I just, that's one thing I want to encourage some people to try. Or the Midwest, that's fascinating. That's good to know how, because how far is a lot of the drive times between a lot of those like venues and cities and stuff.
yeah. I mean, you know, when I was like really like a road comic, like I was doing like 45 some weeks a year.
Oh,
I
wow.
was based out in Nashville. And I freaking love it. And there's a reason why so many musicians live in Nashville. It really is. I mean, Todd Snyder put it this way, and he's 100% right. It's totally the weekend city. And, you know, on a Sunday afternoon, it is bottleneck traffic in Nashville, and it's because all of the creative people are coming back from their weekend gigs wherever they were. And you know, I mean, Nashville is 2.5 hours from Louisville, about 4.5 from Indianapolis. You're about like I want to say like 7 or so from Chicago. You're near like you can get to Michigan, you can get to um, almost anywhere,
Probably
man. I mean,
Atlanta. You're not too far from Atlanta
you're
either.
four from Atlanta.
Yeah.
A place I used to do a lot of shows was like the Gulf Shores, because like you get like a lot of kind of people from New York and stuff who are like a little older and like maybe they want to retire down there, but they're used to seeing things like stand up, you know, because they lived in New York for many years, so they want to kind of bring that in. Um, so yeah, I mean, your driving radius is almost everywhere, and especially when I was doing like more colleges, you know, having so many of the universities in the country within my driving radius and being able to drive there, you know, it's nice. I mean, it really is nice. So yeah, I mean, that's a way to kind of do it
Right.
logistically. And
Right.
and I did it when I was doing it full time. I mean, that's how I did it for a long time. And these days, you know, I still try to route myself um, as efficiently as I can. I mean, now, like, you know, in LA, if you're going to a different region, you probably got to fly, but you know, I'll go to a region and I'll do like a bunch of shows
Right.
because I'd rather do that than just like, you know, fly and just do two shows and then fly and do another. You know, I would just rather knock out a bunch of shows in a region for a lot of reasons. One, it is more economically efficient that way. Two, you know, it's a little better for the environment if you can, you know, try to cut down on your flying to the best of your ability. So there's a lot of reasons I try to do it that way, and I just like it better. You know, if I'm gonna fly to a region, I want to knock out the cities and then be done.
Yeah, and you make the best, like the most of the tour. I mean,
Yeah.
you're there, might as well do as many as you can. Well, so I do want to talk about the tour, but we'll wait till the very end with you and Graham. But with the antitrust summer that you've been
Mm.
talking about, like, so let's kind of shift back into online and into the bands and comics and everyone who is doing stuff online. What exactly is the antitrust summer? Why is it important, and what can people kind of do? Let's go into that.
So there's two bills right now sitting in Congress, OMA and ACOA. I won't go into like all the nitty gritty, but OMA is having to do with the App Store.
Mm.
And basically, the way app stores work right now is Google, and in particular, Apple is the main one. They pretty much have a monopoly on things, and they will charge independent and alternative apps exorbitant fees to be in their store. They'll charge them insane commissions. It's kind of like when a venue is really nickel and diming and screwing over the artist. You know, it's a similar thing.
Right.
And so this bill sort of levels that playing field. It kind of stops those practices, and it also gives the user more of a say in what software works on their device, because they can also kind of like have their software dictate everything else. So that's what that bill does. The other bill, ACOA, has to do with prioritizing content. So when you search for something on Amazon, Amazon will show you their products and services over everything else. Google does the same
Oh,
thing. This drives traffic away from other websites, and it also takes sales away from other vendors. Now, here's the big problem with that too, other than it just being a shady thing to do when you're billing yourself as just an honest search engine. Um, Google will data scrape content from other places. So they're basically taking traffic away from other sites, repackaging it as their own. Amazon will harvest your data, and then they will make knockoff products that people like. So you might be looking for a certain product that a certain vendor is making. It's not going to come up in the search results. Instead, you're going to get generics from Amazon. You might not even realize it, and then you're buying this generic from Amazon.
right.
So it's an incredibly shady thing that they're doing. This bill stops them from doing that. It stops them from favoring their products and services over everyone else, and just makes them behave like an honest search engine. The reason these bills are important is, first of all, it starts to break up big tech, bringing it into how it will affect content creators. I mean, look, we're all at the mercy right now of Google. We're at the mercy of YouTube. We're at the mercy of Amazon. I mean, hey, if you're selling a record, you kind of have to put it on Amazon. You don't really have a choice. Antitrust kind of allows us to see the future of the medium because it really kind of reins in big tech and it allows other innovative things to happen online. You look at the last time we had decent antitrust legislation in this country, it's when they broke AT&T up.
Yeah.
AT&T used to have a monopoly on our phone lines. And, you and I both remember the days when a long distance phone call cost an arm and a leg. Your family would keep a stopwatch when you were on the phone to tell you to get off, That all of a sudden changed. Why? Well, because they broke AT&T up. So people were able to offer cheaper long distance calling. It led to devices like the answering machine. It led to devices like the modem as we know it now, which helped foster in the World Wide Web as we know it now. I'm not saying breaking up AT&T is solely responsible for the modem or the internet. That is not true, but it played a role in how we know it as today. So, the point is, it's like you don't really know what a society is capable of until you have decent antitrust legislation. And now we need it online because monopoly, we pretty much have a monopoly in certain areas. Google, Apple, Facebook, they have near monopolies. We got to break it up so that the internet can continue to flourish. So do we want an internet that's a democratizing super highway of information, which is what it's supposed to be, which is what made it cool in the first place? Or do we want it to continue to descend into a capitalist surveillance hellscape? So these bills are infinitely important. They have a good chance at passing. Chuck Schumer just has to bring it to a vote. He's not doing it. Part of the reason he's not, his daughter works at Amazon. She's a lobbyist there. His other daughter works for Meta. That's Facebook.
Right.
Who's against these bills? Facebook,
course.
Amazon. So we got to scream loud. And so I encourage everyone, go to antitrustsummer.com. Please sign the petition. It takes 20 seconds. And it lets your elected officials know. And if we're loud enough, they're going to have to force a vote on this thing. They got the votes for it. It's insanely popular across the political spectrum. Big tech just has a whole lot of influence. But you know what? These politicians, if they know that, hey, the public's demanding this, the public's screaming for it, we got an election coming up in November. We don't want to lose our freaking jobs. We better give them this win.
Yeah.
That's how politics works when you live in an oligarchy.
Well,
you have to make them feel like we're going to lose our jobs if we don't do this. So we have to tell our donors, sorry, we can't give you every win. We have to give the public this one. Sorry.
Right. It's kind of a little balance. I mean, even that sucks that it has.
Oh, it sucks. Of course it sucks. Yeah, it's terrible. It's just that's the world we're living in. I mean, since I've been doing this, people will say things like, "Well, I don't really want to sign it because I don't like." I mean, someone said like, "Well, I don't really like Chuck Schumer, so I don't want to." I'm just like, when do you think you're ever going to like the person who's in charge of the Senate? When do you think that's ever going to happen?
Yeah,
Mitch McConnell, was that your guy? Do you like him?
Well,
of course you don't like Chuck Schumer. No one likes him. No one likes Chuck Schumer. No one likes Mitch McConnell. These people are terrible. So make them pass policy they don't want to pass. Make them do that.
Yeah, that's a good way of looking at it. Well, you could even go the old school way and just straight call Congress on your own and
totally.
Call the switchboard line and just complain through that way. I mean, I signed up, and then when you sign up, you kind of just shoot off a generic letter, but I think it's also important to get all the names on the list and everything is kind of what
they give you all the names, because like you put in your zip and then they send it to everyone in your district, so you have all the names so you can follow up. And it's good. Antitrustsummer.com, please go.
And it just drives it blows my mind because I mean, I've been on Instagram here. We're doing this all on Instagram. I've been on Instagram a long time. This has been my favorite social media platform because when I was doing like poetry and like sharing art and everything and finding new art, this has always been my OG favorite one. But recently, I mean, like the last few years or so, I just found this platform is just kind of not doing as well, and I'm like, it's probably because Facebook bought it up. I mean, like, let's be real, and just how we can allow Facebook to go and buy up Instagram. And then, I mean, like, it's just, why are we allowing this as a society is what and then everyone wonders why everyone flocks over to TikTok. And then Trump is saying how, it's a government or a Chinese government spy op, which, there's a little.
Well, there's some truth in that, but there is validity to that. But it's like, well, gee. Oh, sorry, my battery's a little low here. I might need to plug in.
Oh, no worries. We got
can you still hear me?
Yeah.
Here, let me get a charger.
Yeah, we can get a nice little view of the outside. Yeah, it's kind of insane how I think we're allowing a lot of this to these companies to kind of like solidify and stuff. And I was actually talking, to go a little political. I was actually talking to my friend who he's a Republican, you know, more
Uh-huh.
right of center. And I was kind of asking, I was like, dude, like as a Republican, as a capitalist, how can you support and endorse companies becoming these giant tech conglomerates? Or even look at Amazon, how they're buying Whole Foods, and then
Uh-huh.
it's like soon it's going to be Bill Gates, Bezos, and Musk are going to own everything. So
Yeah.
as like right-wing capitalists, I'm kind of like, how can you know, if you claim to be such a capitalist, but this isn't really a fair, like, you know, Adam Smith, quote unquote, type of capitalist society, right? I mean, I just never understood that. Like, how writers, I mean, maybe they just don't even give a shit, really, and they just are okay with being hypocrites, but I,
Sure.
that's something that I never really understood.
No, I feel you, man. Well, and kind of bringing it back to these bills. I mean, that's actually why there's some support, like from Republicans and from like Josh Hawley supports these bills,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's why, like they do see the connection here, where it's like, well, we're all about free markets and you know, like innovation and stuff like that. Well, it's not a free market if this one entity can kind of dictate it. But yeah, like what I was gonna say before my battery kind of got low was you know, they made this big deal out of TikTok. Meanwhile, it's like Facebook is harvesting all your data. We have no data privacy on entities like Facebook and Amazon. And what they do is terrible. I mean, Facebook just feeds you all this stuff to like make you stay on Facebook, and Amazon just harvests your data to like find out what products they want to make generics on and then feed that to people.
Right.
So like it's like you think you have privacy on those things. You're worried about, I mean, whenever I would see someone leave a comment about TikTok and how they're not going to get on TikTok on Facebook, I was like, you know what? You don't want to get on TikTok, that's fine. But I hope you realize what you're on right now.
Yeah, yeah. Oh,
And I
they
mean,
do the exact same thing, but the government and Trump and, you know, whoever's not going to make a big deal about it because it's our companies that are
right.
supporting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and then if you go to even Cambridge Analytica, I mean, with that, everything that unfolded with that, with basically data mining, and they were able to completely sway people's outlooks, and that was really terrifying. And I'm pretty sure that company folded, but there's a new version of it, of course.
Oh, totally, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like that's the thing. Like whenever people say these things, like Facebook has like a left bias, which is absolutely ridiculous. Like here's Facebook's bias. They want to keep you on Facebook.
Yeah.
So when people say like, well, Facebook has like they feed you more conservative news, that's true. It's not because I think Facebook has some conservative bias. I don't think they have. I think their bias is just making money. But the reason they feed more conservative news is because, you know, let's be real, their main demographic is a little older now. Facebook is an older social media
Oh,
platform. And, you know, older people, again, this is just a generalization. I don't need emails from people being like, Ron, I'm a boomer and I'm a lefty. I know that every generation, but generally speaking, older people tend to be a little more conservative. There's more conservatives amidst the boomers than the Gen Xers. There's more conservative Gen Xers than millennials. There's more conservative millennials than Z. You get the idea. That's just kind of how it goes. And although that might be shifting, who knows, based on what's going on with society. But so yeah, so Facebook is an older social media platform. So of course they're going to feed you more conservative news because more of their users are conservative.
right. And a lot of these tech companies are shielded from doing any of this. Like they can't be held liable for incite. I totally forgot what you might know exactly, but they can't be held liable for a lot of the if they incite some sort of violence, or they do incite you know, like a low, you know, they these tech enemies aren't, they're shielded. Do you know what exactly what it,
Yeah, I think you're kind of getting into Section 230
yes. Okay.
territory. Now I am 100% for Section 230. The policy itself, it goes way beyond. I mean, it applies to all users on the internet.
Hmm.
So like it is way more complex than just, oh, this shields social media. To an extent that is true, and that is something that we need to address, and we need to, I think kind of have new policy that meets the moment. But getting rid of Section 230, when you really read it, that's not the answer, because it applies to every comment on the internet. It applies to every community on the internet. It applies to what we do as users. So yes, it applies to social media too, but it kind of applies to everyone. Blowing a hole in that is not the answer. What is the answer is having kind of policy that meets the moment, kind of addressing how these social media companies are allowed to behave. I think they should be made public utilities and follow the free speech laws
Yeah.
of the United States. So, it's kind of like the people who advocate blowing up Section 230. To me, that's like, look, we have free speech in the US, right? When we have certain things that shouldn't be tolerated, things like inciting violence, things like defamation. Well, what did we do? Well, we made new laws that address those things. We didn't get rid of the concept of free speech.
Right.
Like this is kind of similar to that. It's like the answer is not to blow up Section 230. The answer is to have additional policy that kind of meets some of the moments that technology is presenting us with.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. You need to advance it and build upon it rather than just completely blow it up. Definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay,
Yeah.
so dude, yeah, this was fun. I love we kind of drifted into a little political talk, but like, it's my favorite. It's my favorite thing to do. So as we wrap it up here a little bit, so you did a few tours. I think your Iceland one unfortunately got canceled, and then
I
you did.
got sick. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
supposed to go to Iceland and I got COVID. So I'm hoping to get there next year. Next year I planned, well, I still plan on, but my plans for next year was UK.
Hmm.
So fortunately, Iceland is not super far from there. I mean, Iceland's not really close to anywhere per se. I guess Greenland, right? They're kind of close together.
Sure.
But yeah, Iceland's sort of like off on its own. So I was supposed to do their Fringe Festival. I got sick. I got COVID, and so I did have to postpone. I was pretty bummed out. I was really looking forward to it.
Yeah.
But I'm hoping to get back there next year and just tag it on to some UK stuff. And I'm hoping my wife will be able to go. Like it was kind of a bummer. My wife wasn't able to go this time around. So I'm hoping that it'll all work out for the best, because I'll still get to go to Iceland and do some shows, but my wife will be able to come with me.
Right. But
And
maybe it was kind of meant to be in a weird way, like.
That's what I'm hoping, man. Because I
Yeah.
mean, there were some other weird circumstantial things too, like this move actually. I was not planning. It's not like just to make it clear for anyone watching. It's not like my wife and I were planning on moving, and I said, "Oh, I better get work in a different country. You can handle this move." Um, it was a very
Sure,
circumstantial
sure,
thing,
sure.
where but this move happened, or this move was set to happen, and I was set to be in Iceland, and the shows had already been announced, the travel was already booked, the room was already paid for, and so I sat down with my wife and I said, should I cancel? And she said, don't cancel. We'll figure this out. You already paid for this. Like we'll make this work. Like you'll pack as much as you can before you leave, and then I'll handle it. Now, of course, I ended up getting sick, so that didn't it wasn't an issue anyway. My wife and I both got it, so we were
Yeah.
both sick pretty much until moving day. So
Oh,
that was a
wow.
fun. Yeah, what a fun way to end. It's like, wow, Rod, stop bragging. You got to have COVID and then you got to move. What a
That's
man
that's like Christmas
party.
on top of Christmas right there.
Right? How lucky are you? So yeah, but I mean, I guess in a way, there were certain things with this move that got a little complicated. So I'm glad that my wife wasn't by herself.
Yeah,
So yeah, I'm hoping in a weird way it'll all
it all
work out in
works
the
out.
end.
Yeah, I
So
love that. Yeah, you got to be optimistic, man. And so you got a few tours in, but you're going up to, and I'm so bummed because I was just up in Portland and Seattle area, and I saw you were going to be in there in July, but you're going to be in
yeah,
there at the end of July. You're going to Kelly's Olympian, and
yep,
then 3 shows you're doing with Graham, who I saw you guys
yeah.
in San Diego. You two are like a tag team, hilarious. Like, and I can
Thanks.
only imagine now, like 4 years later, how further your acts and your shows have improved. So where are you going up there really quick before you wrap it?
Yeah. So Graham Elwood and myself, which we don't get to do a ton of dates together anymore. I mean, he's out in Hawaii, so you know, for the most part, we usually just kind of do our own thing. But occasionally, we are still able to do some dates together. So come on out if you're in the Pacific Northwest. We will be in Portland, Oregon, July 28th at Kelly's Olympia, where you just were. And then July 29th, we'll be in Seattle. And then July 30th will be in Vancouver, British Columbia. So if you're in Portland, Seattle, Vancouver, come on out. You can get tickets at my website, ronplacone.com. And yeah, again, that's July 28th, Portland, July 29th, Seattle, July 30th, Vancouver, ronplacone.com for tickets. It'll be awesome to see everybody. We can't wait to see everybody.
Yeah. I like, and if you can't catch those, if you ever do get a chance to see Ron stand up, it's hilarious. And I can't wait to see you again, man. If you're ever down here in San Diego or traveling through, or I'll zip up to LA or something, I really would like to see your new and improved sets. And because I'm sure you has a lot of fire material with everything going on nowadays, you know.
Cheers, man. Yeah, I hope to catch your stuff too, man. Let me know if you're ever playing LA.
Oh yeah.
And
yeah, I can't wait. Yeah, I can't wait. So everyone go check out Ron Placone. If you're catching this after this, I'm sure, dude, he's all over the world, an international superstar now, traveling. Maybe he'll be out in Iceland next year and you'll be able to
hopefully, yeah, definitely, yeah, UK and Iceland next year. That's what I'll, you know, it'll be a little bit before dates are announced for 23, but yeah.
Right. Dude, you're going strong, man. I love it, dude. And you're gonna keep going strong. Thanks for hopping on here. Like, talked to you a few weeks ago. You're just totally super down. You've always been like with the podcast before. We just met up. I had a blast, and then I saw your show, and it's always so much fun doing an interview with you. And thanks for getting into the nitty gritty with some of the booking stuff. I got to get some of the secret sauce, on that one. So.
Well, I mean, dude, we're all just trying to figure it out. I mean, there's no, and yeah, I mean, I think the best thing we can do, whether you're a musician or a comic, I mean, there's still a lot of overlap. I mean, the best we can do is like help each other and share information. Because I mean, dude, back in the early punk days, that's how they did it. Because I mean, they didn't have internet, they didn't have, so it was all just like, oh, you're trying to go to Reno, you got to call this person. This person just had Black Flag, and I think they're gonna have 7 Seconds next month. I mean. That's how they did it. And even with, all the advancements in technology, I think we still kind of rely on that, and we still kind of need that, because you still need to like know people who are like, oh yeah, you want to call this person, you want to call, don't go there. These people, they screw you over. They won't, they're going to short you, like whatever. Yes. So, yeah, yeah, we definitely have to, share information and help each other out, because that's the only way we're going to weather the storm through all this.
Yeah, and that's exactly why I started doing this Sunday art pop show. So thank you for coming on and giving a little word of advice. And yeah, dude, I'm super excited to do this again sometime. Hopefully not a few years in the future, but
yeah, dude, anytime. I'm a big fan of what you do, and I was a big punk rock and politics fan. I was bummed out when you folded the show. I discovered a lot of cool bands from you.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, keep in touch for sure, and I'll come back anytime.
Oh yeah, we'll set something up, man, because I'm all about merging the music and music comedy world, because I think, like you said, there's a lot us musicians can learn from the comics and vice versa. So I think it's really good to merge everything. So looking forward to the future, bro.
Back at you, man.
Yeah.
Keep in touch.
Yeah, you too. Take care. Thanks for doing it. Talk to you soon, bro.
All right, peace.
See you.